Son of a bitch!
Imagine a crossover game between Grand Theft Auto and Assassin's Creed. That's the Saboteur. Well, that on top of its own unique vibe and charm. The Saboteur stands on its own 2 feet as a game that tackles the bloodiest era in history and somehow humanizes it in a beautifully artistic way. Whether it's the black and white world to symbolize the oppression and immorality of the Nazis, or it's characters like Sean, our protagonist, who embodies the rebellion against an evil order with such compelling juxtaposition. It's a shame that this game's underperformance led a great studio to close its doors for good. The Saboteur may have its flaws, but it deserves to be recognized for the many virtues it has. The Saboteur is a tour de maître, a masterpiece. The Saboteur was developed by Pandemic Studios and released on December 3rd, 2009. 2009 was a great year for gaming. Alongside the Saboteur, 2009 had Assassin's Creed 2, Batman Arkham Asylum, Left 4 Dead 2, to name a few. Now, partly due to the flurry of great and much more established games that year, the Saboteur was nowhere near as appreciated amongst gamers, and sales reflected. Those that did play, though, had a good time. Most reviews for the Saboteur weren't too harsh, and it got favourable ratings. Before I tell the tragic tale of Pandemic Studios, let's first take a look at where they began. Pandemic was founded in 1998 by Andrew Goldman and Josh Resnick, ex-employees of Activision. During Pandemic's lifecycle, they actually released a few bangers. The Star Wars Battlefront series and Destroy All Humans probably being their most notable games. OG Battlefront 1 and 2 are cult classics among hardcore Star Wars and casual FPS fans alike. I remember playing Battlefront 2 at my friend's house back in the pre-2010 era. I never owned the mainline titles, but kind of knew what I was doing since I played a ton of Battlefront Renegade Squadron on my PSP. It was a late night Friday sleepover. Cameron and I were huddled over this silver brick of a VHS TV with the PS2 plugged in. Probably snacking on those tiny jelly pizzas or something. Good times. Shout out to Cameron if you're watching this. I haven't seen bro in like 12 years. God damn. I also have a lot of nostalgia for Destroy All Humans. As a little kid, I would watch my dad play his OG Xbox plugged into a TV that looked something like this. So yeah, I used to watch him play that game all the time. I remember finding the visuals really cool, especially on the game case. On top of that, I actually played the Saboteur as a kid too. Anyway, in 2007, Pandemic were acquired by Electronic Arts, likely granting the studio a much larger development budget than they had ever seen. Now, what I'm about to say may seem like a complete tangent, and well, yes it is. But it is important Pandemic Studios' history, as well as context to why they closed their doors. Pandemic's main LA studio worked on the Saboteur. Not long after, they'd branch out to Australia with Pandemic Brisbane. This studio was working on some kind of Batman game. Now initially, the Batman game's development was coming along swimmingly. It was looking promising. Eventually, Pandemic's publisher EA jumped in and decided the game needed to tie in with the Dark Knight movie, releasing later that year. Well, that caused the guys over in Australia to have to throw 6 months of hard work right in the trash, costing EA a lot of money. They were now under a ton of pressure. Mere months to get a reworked Batman game out of the door, as EA's exclusivity deal with Warner Bros. Would expire come December 2008. Well, that date came and went with no Batman game. Pandemic Brisbane simply didn't have enough time to get it finished, and the game was swiftly cancelled. So you see, a quote-unquote failed game around the same time as good but by no means box office hit sales of the Saboteur all combines to result in the untimely end of a fresh and creative game studio. But during their short life, Pandemic's hidden gem, its diamond in the rough, its creme de la creme of high magnitude, known as the Saboteur, stood as 2009's most underrated yet accomplished titles. And without further ado, I present that very game to you. Now, I think it's important to mention just how badly optimized the Saboteur is on PC. There is controller support, but booting up the game with your controller connected results in a glitch where the game thinks you are constantly moving your camera at a rapid speed. And there's a similar issue with the in-game menus. So I took to the internet to find a fix. Most forums online suggested editing certain files in the game directory, but that's effort, and nobody wants to go messing with that stuff. So it's lucky I found a much easier fix. Just boot the game first and then connect your controller. Once connected, there will be no spinning problems and you can enjoy the Saboteur as intended. Now, this wasn't the only problem I encountered when playing this game for the first time. You were automatically made to play the game in, I think, like 720p, with seemingly no graphical options to change that. In the day and age of 4K, that's dead in the water on arrival. Most people are uninstalling the game then and there. But again, fret not. Head over to Documents, then the Save Game folder of the Saboteur. Here you'll find the game config file. Open that and edit the resolution to either 1920 by 1080 or higher depending on your screen's resolution, which if you're unsure of, you can find in your own system settings in the display options. So now your controller should be working and you're playing in 1080p or higher. Congrats. Now we can play the game. Yes, we can, but be prepared to be hit with insane FPS drops infrequently throughout your playthrough. It's not so often that it makes the Saboteur unplayable, but I can say for sure that it's really flipping annoying, mate. You kinda just have to sit there and wait for the game to catch up. Personally, I take this time to pour myself another Coke Zero, cause I'm addicted to that shit.
But that's irrelevant to anyone but myself, so, sorry?
If I'm to take a guess, I'd imagine the reasoning for these FPS drops is due to bottlenecking. I mean, we're trying to play an already unoptimized game from 2009 on hardware that's near 15 years newer. Anyway, let's talk about the actual game. One thing that initially allured me to the Saboteur was how strikingly similar it is to the traditional Assassin's Creed games. With most of its gameplay mechanics as well as narrative themes, it's pretty much the World War II Assassin's Creed game we never got. In 2009, the Saboteur's similarities to Assassin's Creed were seen as negatives. Critics argued that this was nothing new off the tail end of AC2, and disregarded it as a clone. But looking back, I see this as only positive for the Saboteur. Not enough stealth games focus on social stealth in the way that the older Assassin's Creed games do. The Saboteur's gameplay systems aren't as in-depth as Assassin's Creed, but they're very similar. For example, low and high profile actions are present within the Saboteur. Walking is seen as a low profile action, while running, drawing a weapon, or climbing is seen as high profile. You can also climb any building just like in Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed pre-2012 has an intricate and in-depth parkour mechanic, whilst the Saboteur has a fairly simple climbing mechanic. I won't lie though, it's still so much better than the Assassin's Creed RPG game's parkour. But hey, we move. The Saboteur has a semi-linear open world quite similar to the first Assassin's Creed game. There's activities and side missions to partake in, but overall the world is there to push forward the narrative. Everything you do in this game, whether big or small, ties into the plot, giving every bit of content just as much incentive as one another to progress in. Gameplay is engaging, whether it's scaling the side of a German blimp, gunning down Nazis, or driving around Paris with the radio on. Although not a technical marvel even at the time, the Saboteur feels alive. The world is designed not to just be there because gamers love open worlds, but to tell a story. It's very cleverly used as a narrative device which further perpetuates the game's artful storytelling. And I'll explain how it does this later. So we know the game's setting and vibe, but what's the story? In a nutshell, The Saboteur is a story of a man named Sean Devlin, an Irishman who works in secret to take down the evil Nazis and liberate Paris from their oppression. A simple story on the surface that, in time, runs much deeper than the game originally presents it. Something I absolutely love about The Saboteur is the story it chooses to tell. It's not another rehashed World War II narrative that we all know and we're bored to death of. We know how the war played out. It's taught to most of us at a very young age. The Saboteur instead decides to depict a much lesser known true story. A much more underground tale that was intrinsic to the war effort in France. It's heartwarming, intriguing, and kind of inspiring.
The historical inspiration comes from somebody named William Grover Williams, who was a driver for the French Bugatti racing team. And when the war happened, he was half English and half French, so he fled France when the Nazis occupied France. And
our main character, Sean Devlin, is based on a real-world person named William Grover Williams, a half-French-British race car driver that was very well known in the 1920s for his many Grand Prix wins. After settling down with his wife Yvonne in Paris, now a wealthy and renowned individual, Williams enlisted in the British Royal Army, working as a driver across France. When the Battle of France was won by the Nazis, Williams was evacuated from Dunkirk to England and was recruited into the Special Operations Executive, or SOE. Due to Grosvenor's fluency in English and French, as well as his fearless racing background, he was a valuable asset. Grosvenor Williams worked in espionage and sabotage across Paris, greatly aiding the war effort in the liberation of France. In 1994, Williams and his conspirators would be discovered at one of their bases of operations. Williams was arrested and sent to Berlin, where he would likely be tortured for a while, until he was then sent to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. It's recorded that William Grover Williams was executed on March 18, 1945. And that is likely and unfortunately what occurred. Although, William's close war ally Ronat Benoist's granddaughter claims that he survived the war and lived in the village of Amfreville-la-Champagne in Normandy, alongside his wife Yvonne. It's speculated that Yvonne did in fact live with a man that went by the name Georges Tambal, and the granddaughter of Robert also claims this was a false identity donned by Williams. Whether Georges Tambal really was Grosvenor Williams or not will probably never be known. Georges Tambal was killed in a bicycle accident in 1983 by a German driver. William Charles Frederick Grosvenor Williams' full story is so inspiring and it's well worth the read. I'll leave the link to his Wikipedia page in the description. The Saboteur's Sean Devlin is directly inspired by Williams' life, but I emphasise the word inspired. Sean is an Irishman who fights for fairly different purposes than Williams did. In The Saboteur, we start our story in the heart of Paris. Sean mulls over a bottle looking sorry for himself. The following cutscene perfectly sets things up for Sean's character and the world around him.
Is this seat taken?
I'm not looking for company.
You're in Paris, my friend. In this city, no one drinks alone. So, what are we celebrating?
We aren't. But if you're keen to get your teeth kicked in, I'll be happy to oblige.
I'd have thought you were too busy kicking yourself. With good reason, I'm sure.
What's it to you?
You think you're the only man in Paris hoping to drown a guilty conscience? This city is filled with men like us. We all have good reasons. I've been watching you these past weeks. I have seen that you have no love for the Nazis. The question is, how many more people will die at the hands of these jackbooted killers while you sit there cowering like a whipped dog? You're mad enough to break that bottle over my head, but you won't lift a finger to help these people, eh?
This isn't my country.
Oh, did you abandon your conscience at the border? Does the need for justice end at some line drawn on a map?
Aye, if it's a map of Ireland. You Frenchmen have unrealistic expectations.
Open your eyes! The war is all around us. You can't escape it. You can hide here and leave the fighting to braver men. Or you can walk out that door and do what must be done. The choice is yours!
Keep it down. That sort of talk will get us both a bullet in the back of the head.
I intend to do more than talk. There is a courtyard around the corner. Meet me there when you are ready to stop hiding.
We then must partake in a small sabotage mission. This is also perfect in identifying the gameplay loop to the player within the open world, as well as provide a taste of what's to come in a narrative. Here we learn the basics: stealth, combat, driving, climbing, and of course, sabotage. Sean returns to the Bell where he has his own living quarters. He sets down to rest, and the cutscene fades into a flashback.
Ah, bollocks! What's got into you, mate?
What the hell are you doing?
What's it bloody look like?
Your whore is my girl now, Sean. I will not have another man picking up her skirt.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Jules.
You're a driver now. You want respect on the circuit? You gotta stop thinking like a mechanic.
All right, I'm put on airs like some posh wanker with a silver spoon up my arse. No thanks, brother.
Veronique!
Morning, beautiful.
I'm coming along for the race. Vittore asked me to take pictures.
Couldn't he wait till I'd made myself a little more decent?
I don't believe in miracles.
Oh, my sister got all the charm.
And the brains.
That's enough screwing around. We've got a race to win. You boys have work to do. Both of you.
Say the word, boss.
Let's get our girl on the trailer. I want to be across the border by sundown.
Now playing within the flashback, Sean must compete in the Grand Prix. I really like this act of the story. Honestly, I think the Saboteur does the job of having a perfect video game introduction. Sure, there are moments that feel slightly contrived, such as Vittori's entrance into the scene out of seemingly nowhere,
Got a race to win.
but it makes sense that we meet the people Sean has the strongest connections with from the outset. And this scene makes moments we'll move on to later all the more impactful. We meet some of our main support characters here, and it all ties in to set up more of the story, such as Sean's motivations, as well as to get a more personal look into his personality. They say you can discern a person by the company they keep, and I think that sentiment definitely rings true here with Jules, Veronique, and Vittore. After driving towards Germany, the group stop for drinks.
Another round for me, mates.
Easy, Sean. You'll need a clear head tomorrow. Dirker flew in this morning from Berlin.
Kurt Dirker. I thought he was retired.
Speak of the devil.
Guten Abend, Herr Morini. Always a pleasure to welcome one of our Italian friends to the fatherland. I was just speaking of my admiration for General Mussolini. A kindred spirit to our own Führer. Your country is fortunate to have such a leader, yeah?
Racing is my passion. I find little time for politics.
Sometimes racing is politics.
No, there is a difference.
You must forgive my ignorance, Herr Morini. We Germans are a simple people. Perhaps you would enlighten us further?
One's a hobby for rich assholes who can't get laid without a flashy car and a silly uniform. The other is racing.
This must be that British mechanic who thinks he's a driver.
I'm fucking Irish.
It's getting late. Why don't we call it a night?
The night is young, Fräulein. Stay, dine with me.
I've no taste for German cuisine.
Not yet, perhaps. But soon, the women of your country will learn to savor the taste of a purebred German bratwurst. Bastard!
And at that, we're thrown right into combat. This isn't the first time in combat we got to beat up some Nazis in the first sabotage mission, but in this segment the mechanic is explained in more depth, teaching the player how to grab, kick, and, well, punch, and all under a now more intense scenario. Mid-fight, Sean and Jules flee the pub and end up running into Skylar, a fleeting lover of Sean's past.
Fuck me. Skylar?
Are you chatting me up? Hello, Sean. Hi, Jules.
Merde. We'll catch up later. Right now, we need to borrow your car.
It's the day of the race and Sean is just as confident as ever. Now, I found playing this race quite fun. It works the same as any racing game. Take the lead and win. And as a bonus, you even get great scenery like planes flying overhead. Further backing up a point I made earlier, that any type of gameplay, be it a big set piece or a one-off activity, all play into the narrative. The Saboteur doesn't shy away from always pushing the narrative in subtle ways and reinforcing the core themes of the story, and we'll discuss what those themes are later on. When it comes to car handling in the Saboteur, I went in expecting it to feel really shitty. After all, it's a AA game from 15 years ago. But you know what? I was actually surprised. It's no GTA 5 or Cyberpunk 2077, but it's good and for sure could be a lot worse.
Son of a bitch!
After Dierke's unjust win, Sean is rightfully pissed off. He had that race in the bag, and along comes a blonde-haired dickhead and shoots his bloody tyres out. Yeah, no, I'd be slightly annoyed too. Sean expresses his anger as Vittori holds him back, giving this line.
Don't go looking for trouble. It finds us all soon enough.
I love this line of dialogue. It conveys to the player quite a lot. The father-son bond between Sean and Vittori as he understands Sean's behaviour and attempts to quell the anger, much like an older parent might. And the line also foreshadows what's to come. You know, a lot of bad, things.
What's that? That is where the silver dart will be on display after tomorrow's ceremony.
What ceremony?
In honor of Dierke's victory, the latest triumph of the Aryan race.
Oh, bollocks. It'd be a damn shame if something were to happen to Dierker's car before the big shindig.
You mean some kind of freak accident? Oh, that would be terrible.
Aye, tragic. Who's up for a little Sunday drive?
I'm game.
Where are you two going? Vittori told you to wait here.
We won't be long.
Jules, don't be a fool. If you want to get yourself killed, I can't stop you. But leave my family out of it.
Jules is his own man.
If I may chime in.
It's not polite to eavesdrop. Didn't they teach you that in boarding school?
Quite the opposite, actually.
Perhaps you were too busy screwing your teachers to notice.
Please, we can't all die virgins.
Brother, let's go, Jules.
You're making a mistake, Sean.
When did you become the voice of prudence?
Dierke isn't who you think he is.
Oh, he's not a motherless arse-faced knob jockey.
He's dangerous, Sean. Let it go.
Thanks for the tip. We'll see you girls later.
Ah, our first tailing mission. Didn't I say this was like Assassin's Creed? Sean and Jules follow Dierke to some kind of facility. The two friends sneak inside to find Dierke's car.
Now! Looks like I need to work on my parallel parking.
Maybe we should leave a note, eh?
Dear Wanker, sorry about the bang-up. Send the bill to me arse. Oh, give me right arm to see the look on that tosser's face.
That can be arranged, Herr Devlin.
Shite.
Jules, hold on, Jules. Stay with me. Stop! Stop this! For God's sake, stop hurting him! Sir? I'm here, Jules. I can't see. Jules.
Your friend cannot hear you at the moment. I'm afraid the pain was more than he could bear. Franziska tells me you have been eager to see the look on my face. I hope you are not disappointed.
What the fuck is going on here?
Do you believe I spend every waking minute behind the wheel of a race car? I have other, more practical talents with which to serve the Reich. My services are in great demand of late.
Why are you doing this?
I'm a patriot.
You're a fucking animal.
We are all animals, beneath the skin. My godfather taught me that. He was a butcher, did you know? He taught me that the flesh holds no secrets once the skin has been removed. I had a long talk with your friend. He sang like a bird. But he could not tell me what I most want to know.
And what is that?
bishop is not half as clever as he thinks he is. He imagines that we are all blind to his childish schemes. Typical British arrogance.
Who the fuck is Bishop? Maybe you should be talking to him.
Do not insult my intelligence. We know that you are a British agent. We know that you were sent here to conduct surveillance on this facility.
What? You think I'm working for the damn Brits? You must be out of your bloody head.
Enough. You will tell me every operational detail of your mission. You will tell me, one way or another.
Pull your head out of your arse, man. I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Your choice is simple. You may choose to tell me exactly what I want to know, freely and without omission. In which case, you and your friend will return to France to live out the rest of your lives in peace.
Sean,
Or you may refuse.
how are you there? I'm right beside you, Jules.
In which case, neither of you will ever leave this room. Make your choice. Now.
Go fuck yourself! No! God! You fucking bastard!
Guard the prisoner. The interrogation will continue when I return.
Should have been me, brother. Before this is over, they're gonna wish it hard.
We now must escape the facility by any means necessary. Stealthily or with more aggression, take your pick. We reach Sean's base to find it being ransacked by the Germans.
Thank God you're unharmed, child.
Thanks, Sean. They would have burned me alive.
These men were Gestapo. What are they doing here? Dierker sent them.
Dirk? Oh my god. Where is my brother? Where's Jules? No! Get away from me! This is your fault! You took him to that place! Jules!
We can't stay here. More Germans will come looking for these. Where will we go? West. It's our only chance. Right. To Paris, then. We'll get you home. Let's go.
And so you see, Sean's journey stems from loss. The entire introduction you watched isn't just a simple tutorial, but a well-paced, greatly written prologue with the intended purpose to draw you in and immerse you into the Saboteur's world. This act presents the game's themes on a platter: love, loss, hope, confliction, and liberation. I won't go through the entire story as I did for the introduction and prologue, because I want you guys to go and experience this amazing game yourselves. Expect the game to focus on the same themes in more depth as Sean's character develops. He starts his journey fighting the Germans in Paris as a means of revenge, to find and kill Dierker for what he did to Jules and the impact it left. This is Sean's initial mission for two reasons: to avenge his best friend, and the desire for some kind of feeling of redemption for the guilt Sean lives with. Eventually though, things change. Sean begins to understand the wider impact of the war, how countless others are affected just the same as Jules was. Sure, the memory of Jules is likely part of what keeps Sean fighting, but he starts to fight for not just selfish gain, but also the liberation of all the people of France. I think the characters Sean meets, and the relationships he builds, are also a major contributing factor to this shift in his aspirations. Gameplay sucks. Nah, I'm joking, it's fucking sick. The city of Paris is sizable and packed from inch to inch with the Saboteur's core gameplay beats, and the same goes for the surrounding countryside. The whole point of the game is to disrupt the enemy and weaken their grip on Paris, and that's exactly what you do in the open world when not playing main or side missions. Paris is scattered with Nazis. Guard towers, outposts, equipment and weapon stations are everywhere. You can wipe these out by any means necessary. At the start of the game, stealth was my friend. I'd sneak up to an enemy, take them out, and put on their outfit to use as a disguise, and work my way around the area cleaning up shop. Partaking in activities throughout the world earn you contraband, the Saboteur's in-game currency. Contraband is used to buy weapons, ammo, and explosives from Sean's local black market dealer. You can also spend contraband on mini-games at the Bell, and for you horny dogs out there, you can buy a dance from these lovely ladies. Come on, I know you did it. Fess up. Oh, and your zipper's still undone. Just an FYI. The best way to approach an area stealthily is by disguise. This is where a lot of social stealth comes into play. Running in a disguise will render you a fucking idiot, and you'll be caught. The same goes for climbing. Walking and evading enemy NPC's radial area shown on the minimap will keep you hidden. If you shoot an enemy NPC, the bloods will render the disguise useless, so it's best to sneak up on them from behind. Now you may have noticed a lot of my gameplay looks black and white, and I mentioned that it's an artistic approach to the game earlier, so let me explain how all this works. At the start of the game, the whole of Paris is black and white because every district of Paris is being controlled by the Nazis. You must liberate an area to bring life and colour back to it. Most of this happens naturally throughout the main story, so it's not something you have to actively go out of your way to do. I call it an artistic approach to the narrative because the black and white is a visual representation of the hold the enemy has. It's a reminder that this beautiful city full of life and love is now wrought with fear and chaos. Pretty much the opposite of what it should be. Enemy armbands, flags, basically anything associated with them is shown in red colour, and Yurka's eyes themselves are even red. Again, this is visual world building as well as visual cues to portray the enemy as this all-encompassing dominant threat you can't escape. When in a black and white area, you might notice that Sean's eyes will remain blue as well as his car, the Aurora. French resistance members' blue armbands and signage will also remain blue. To me, this is a duality sign between despair and hope. The enemy's colour remains, fueling hopelessness, but Sean and supporting characters and factions' colours balance it out with hope. This all references back to the Saboteur's core themes, which again, I believe to be love, loss, hope, confliction, and liberation. Just like GTA, if you fuck with the authorities, you're gonna get burnt. Kind of like the GTA Wanted system with its stars, the Saboteur has alarm levels, base level 1 through 5. Level 1 sees a few dudes after you, maybe a bit of a car chase, whilst level 5 summons a whole armada of cars, tanks, planes and even blimps. There was one moment when I honestly thought the game was glitched because I couldn't seem to shake off a level 5 plane. Each time I shot one down, another would just turn up. I eventually found a hiding place and waited it out until they were off my back. Speaking of hiding spots, the Saboteur has a very similar mechanic to Assassin's Creed 1 through Revelations, where you can hide in certain spots to evade the guards. You know, like hay, benches, rooftop prayer boxes, that type of thing. In the Saboteur, you've got phone booths, wells, women, yeah, no, literally, sheds, and trapdoors. There might be more hiding spots, but those are the ones I came across during my playthrough. The Saboteur doesn't have viewpoints in games like Assassin's Creed, where you synchronize to unlock more of the world map and have fast travel options. It instead uses viewpoints as a way to unlock contraband. You visit an iconic location such as the Eiffel Tower, reach the top, the viewpoint triggers and you unlock contraband. I only compare this to Assassin's Creed viewpoints because the Saboteur obviously took a lot of inspiration from AC1 and 2, but it's pretty much a completely different in-game activity in the Saboteur. One of the most entertaining side activities is street racing. Races are available throughout Paris and there is a good abundance of them. It's definitely a good pace changer between the rest of the game, which consists of a completely different mission structure. Now, on top of all the activities throughout the world, there are also side stories. Each side story focuses on an individual character allied with Sean. For an example, you have the priest in Slaughterhouse HQ. In his first side quest, he sends Sean to covertly take out a German during one of the priest's Sunday services. These side quests are simple and don't directly affect the main story, but they're worth playing through because they show a more personal side to each side character and further amplify the wider reaching implications the war has on its victims. Again, using the priest as an example, the war has turned a devout, peaceful man of faith into a methodical killer, not out of desire, but necessity, the lesser of two evils. I also want to mention the amazing soundtrack of The Saboteur. I can't play any of it though because it's all copyrighted. Just know that it really captures the essence of the era and location, and adds somewhat of a feeling of hope, as well as a reminder of the goods that the enemy tries hard to oppress. You're never going to get bored in the world of The Saboteur, whether it's taking a casual stroll through the elegant streets of Paris, clay pigeon shooting in the fields, or terrorizing the cows that just want to live a happy life. No one is safe! Genuinely, The Saboteur as a video game exceeded my expectations tenfold. I'd only drive around and climb as a young kid playing on my dad's PS3, so I never really got to experience The Saboteur for the game it was. Oh, and also I used to sneak into the club and stare at the naked women. I was 8 years old, can you blame me? Alright, now I feel like I have to defend my dad. I remember he told me something like, if you enter that building in-game, then you're gonna be in big trouble. But, you know, when he left the room, I'd sneak into that club and, well, yeah. The Saboteur's impactful storytelling left me speechless in some areas. This isn't a game that I'm ever going to forget. Like I said at the start of the video, The Saboteur really is a masterpiece in its own right. The Saboteur is now available on Steam, and playing there is probably your best bet. I played the game through GOG on PC, because when I started this game it wasn't yet out on Steam. That's a more recent thing. I would assume that the game has been much better optimized for Steam and you may not encounter the errors I did. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments as well as your own thoughts on this incredible game. Well, that's The Saboteur. Another game I can mark off my list.
Is it over?
No, it's not over. I'm just getting started.
That's